Hey everyone, my name is Anders, and today we are going to go over the test server updates for Black Desert this week. This is only patch notes with no actual update on the test server because of Lunar New Year, but we should see these changes go live next week in Korea and in 2 weeks for the rest of the regions. So starting off, let's go through the class balance for Succession Warrior. The meditation skill will now recover more mana, 500 mana instead of 350, and it's also now going to recover health, 500 health at max level of the skill. Cooldown has been also changed to 20 seconds instead of 30, and the Succession version of this skill will be deleted. Prime Guard will now allow you to strafe while in Q block, and stamina will be consumed as if you were moving forward or backward. Prime Heavy Strike now has forward guard. Prime Shield Strike now has a stun CC in PvE on the first 2 hits. Prime Counter will now link with the forward jump version of Earth Tremor if you press the F key after the upward slash counter attack. Enhanced Spirit, which is your Succession Shift E buff, no longer has the evasion rate buff, and instead the DP buff has been increased from 20 to 40, and the accuracy rate buff has been increased from 15% to 20%. Absolute Counter had a minor animation bug fixed, and for Awakening Warrior, Flow Reckless Blow no longer has the attack speed buff. Burning Moxie now has the attack speed buff from Reckless Blow, but it is now going to be a passive skill. Depending on the amount of enemies around you, your attack speed and your DP will increase. If there is one enemy around you, your attack speed will increase by 10% and your DP by 20. If there are 3 enemies, your attack speed will increase by 10% again and your DP by 30. And if there are 6 or more enemies around you, your attack speed will increase by 15% and your DP by 40. Seems like a clunky change, but if you are a warrior, let me know what you think in the comments. Grave Digging has better links with Reckless Blow, Pulverize, and Flow Tempest. The Flow Ankle Break floating CC is now PvE only, and it now has a forward guard. Greatsword Defense now has a tooltip description fix. And moving on for Succession Kuno, the Prime Ankle Cutter skill now consumes 20 mana, and it will no longer consume stamina when used on cooldown. An ninjutsu effect has also been added to this skill. Prime Flash Slash has been changed so that movement attacks are not activated while pressing Shift or F while using this skill. Prime Will of Wrath attack range on the first hit has been fixed to match the effect, and the range of the second hit has been changed to be a wider range. Kind of scuffed translation for this one, I'm sorry, but it seems like they're just unifying the range distance on the skill. But if you're a Kuno, let me know in the comments. Prime Dance Macabre will now link more smoothly with Prime Crescent Slash, Prime Ankle Cutter, and Prime Shadow Explosion, as well as Prime Shackles. Prime Shadow Clone cooldown has been reduced to 8 seconds from 10 seconds. That's all for Kuno. Now for Awakening Witch, Fissure Wave no longer has the attack speed debuff. Instead, Thunderstorm now has a lower cooldown of 8 seconds instead of 11, and it now has that attack speed debuff. This attack speed debuff and the already movement speed debuff on this skill will now be 25% reduction for 5 seconds instead of 10, and if you summon Tet and use Thunderstorm, Tet will now attack according to the target. BSR Detonative Flow all resistance buff has been increased to 20 seconds from 10 seconds. Yoke of Ordeal no longer has the crit rate buff. Instead, Lightning Blast now has the crit rate buff. Tectonic Block, which is your Q block, will now have the DP buff last for 10 seconds instead of 5 seconds. Equilibrium Break can now be cancelled with your Flow Magical Evasion or Elementalization skill. Elementalization has better links with Teleport. The cooldown of Flow Magical Evasion has been reduced to 3 seconds from 4 seconds. Your pet passive effects, your Gore's Blessing effect, and your Tet's Ascent effect will now give you a max mana of 700 instead of the 250 mana recovery effect it had every 10 seconds. It will now also lock your summon from proccing while using skills. You would have to be in a standby mode or press F after using Flow Magical Evasion to summon your pets. For Awakening Wizard, Elementalization has better links with Teleport. The cooldown of Flow Magical Evasion has been reduced to 3 seconds from 4 seconds, and your pet will now lock your summon from proccing while using skills. You would again have to use the skill in standby mode or press F after using Flow Magical Evasion. Now for Succession Striker, Prime Roaring Tiger now has forward guard. Silent Step will now link more smoothly with more skills. It also now has an iframe into SA animation instead of just being iframe. Prime Fist Fury now has an 8-second cooldown added to the skill. It cannot be used on cooldown. Floating CC on the third hit has been removed and replaced with knockback CC on the first hit. You recover more martial spirit on hits, and damage has been increased by around 5% but with less hits, and a 30% crit rate base added to the skill. Explosive Jolt Rabam now recovers 50 health on hit instead of 20 mana on hit. It will now link more smoothly with other skills. It will now link with combo Final Blow and Roaring Tiger by pressing LMB, and it now deals 40% more damage. They also fixed a number of issues with some Succession skills, and that's pretty much it for Succession Striker. Moving on to Succession Nova, Koratum's opening can now be used on cooldown. The cooldown for this skill has been increased from 5 seconds to 7 seconds. The Succession version of the skill has the same cooldown as before. Absolute Punishing Trap is your grapple. It no longer rushes on grapple fails. It will now consume mana instead of stamina. The protection effect will no longer apply on failed grabs. It can no longer be used on cooldown, and the cooldown has been reduced to 17 seconds. Super Armor has been added on successful grabs. Prime Icy Prison no longer has a normal attack. Instead, Axin will appear and attack even if you have pawns summoned. Koratum's Vigor, your passive, is now a 400 max health passive instead of the 45 health recovery passive it used to be. Prime Star's Call has been changed so that collision does not apply when moving forward. The damage has been changed to apply while moving forward. Even if you hit an enemy, you will go through them and continue the attack. Prime King of the Dead cooldown has been reduced to 5 seconds instead of 20. The skill itself will be its own icon as well on the skill window. It will no longer activate if the conditions are such that Axin cannot be summoned and the summoned Axin cannot be despawned. Prime Bitter Rain now deals 8% more damage, has crit rate base even in PvP. The accuracy rate has been increased to 10% from 6%, and it now recovers 50 health per hit instead of 30. Prime Icy Thorns now deals 80% more damage and recovers 60 health per hit instead of 30. Prime Frozen Earth now deals 6% more damage, has 100% crit rate instead of 50% base, and recovers 25 mana per hit instead of 15. Prime Stamma's Mate now deals 12% more damage, has 100% crit rate instead of 50% base, has 14% accuracy rate instead of just 5%, and recovers 25 mana per hit instead of 15. Prime Entangling Icy Thorns now deals 13% more damage, has 100% crit rate instead of 50% base, and recovers 30 mana per hit instead of 10. Prime Swooping Ring now deals 3% more damage and recovers 50 health per hit instead of 25. And lastly, they have fixed the issue where your summoned pet damage, so your pawns and your Axion, were dealing 100% of your main weapon damage. I'm not sure if that is a buff or a nerf, to be honest, so let me know in the comments. That's all for class balance this week. Good news is that it seems we are finally getting the class balance changes, so hopefully we see some more changes next week in Global Labs. Let me know what you think. For content updates, in Guild League, they have increased the amount of points you get for wins. You will now get 30 points instead of 20, and if you lose, you will see a 10-point reduction instead of 15. For War of the Roses, they have made the GS requirement to be 700 GS instead of 680 GS, which I think had to do with some DP build feedback. I'm not sure. The buff obtained from the Sanctuary has also been reduced, again I think as a response to feedback. Health of Sanctuaries has been buffed, Sanctuary Guardians have been buffed, Siege weapons now have less health, and the commanders now have double the amount of health and deal more damage. Again, all of these seem to be a response to the feedback from NA and EU, and I'm sure other regions. Lastly, we have some quality of life changes. The stable UI will now let you sort your horses by tier, gender, levels, or the amount of breeds left. Workers will now have a color border to show what rarity they are when you're hiring them, and you can now open the marketplace from the market notification window. That's all for the patch this week. Again, this is going to be hitting Korea first, so 2 weeks for us. Let me know what you think about the class balance changes. If you were someone who participated in the War of the Roses last weekend, let me know if these changes are enough to make the game mode better. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.